spending plan for next year. And there won't be a dialogue just yet between the Valenzuela City LGU and NLEX Corporation. The city government postpones a talk over what it deems to be a veiled threat from one of the operator's officials. The NBI is looking at all possible angles in the death of its counterterrorism chief, Raul Manguera. They're not discounting accidental firing, self-inflicted or otherwise. Local travelers have been reported breaching safety protocols in tourist destinations, from partygoers in a beach resort in Batangas to fake COVID test results in Boracay. And will Ginebra finally take home the crown tonight, or will TNT live to see another day? The latest on the PBA Finals Game 5 on the game. We begin tonight with the lower house ratifying the 4.5 trillion peso 2021 budget bill, laying the ground for President Duterte's approval before the start of a new year. Over 72 billion pesos have been allocated for vaccine procurement. Mean Los Baños with a big story.
The House of Representatives has ratified the proposed 4.5 trillion peso national budget for 2021, hours after contingents from the lower and upper chambers signed the final bicameral committee report. 72.5 billion pesos has been allocated for the procurement of COVID-19 vaccines under programmed and unprogrammed funds. Senate Finance Committee Chairman Sonny Angara says the Finance Department has assured him of enough sources of funds for the shots.
A very big probability. Ang akala kasi ng iba, pag unprogrammed, hindi siya mapoponahan. But it's not true. The probability of being funded is large.
Another 10 billion pesos has been reserved for vaccines under the Bayanihan 2, which will expire this month, meaning the fund can only be used next year if the Congress passes a law that will extend its effectivity. Angara assures the public that the budget is pork-free as they complied with the Supreme Court decision to scrap lump sum funds. House Appropriations Committee Chair Eric Yap says they have realigned around 23 billion pesos for typhoon recovery.
Yung mga hindi implementable, yung mga mas least na kailangan, at linipat namin sa mga provinces like Cagayan, tulad ng mga iba pang sa Bicol, Albay, doon namin linagay yung mga infra, mga roads, yung mga kailangan nila.
The lawmaker says they tried to fix the uneven allocation to districts after it caused friction among several congressmen.
Especially yung build project ng presidente, it depends kung saan po yung may pinaka malaking build projects. Kaya minsan mas lumulobo yung distrito na yun.
The education sector will get the biggest chunk from the 2021 national budget with over 708 billion pesos, followed by the Public Works and Health departments with 694 billion and 247 billion respectively. The spending plan also sets aside funds for new legislations and programs approved within the last 3 to 4 years. Aside from the Bayanihan 2, the Congress also needs to pass a bill that will extend the availability of the 2020 budget. Angara is calling on Malacanang to certify the measure as urgent so they can pass it before the Christmas break.
We're waiting. We cannot. It's an appropriations measure, so we have to wait for the House to pass it on third reading. Tapos pag napasa nila, then we'll sponsor it. It's a bit tight, honestly. It's a bit tight. So yung certification would make a big difference kasi we only have 4 session days left, including today.
Reporting for News 5, Mean Los Baños, we are One News.
Now, in line with the President's order, Health Secretary Francisco Duque said the agency will study the cost of providing free COVID-19 tests for Filipinos. Duque says the Finance and Budget departments are in charge of sourcing funds for the mass testing slated in the first half of next year. The Health Department also calls on private hospitals to allocate 20% of their bed capacity for COVID care as cases are expected to surge after the holidays. Duque also noted that vaccine regulators will look into circulating reports that Chinese manufacturer Sinovac had a record of bribery. Sinovac is one of the country's 5 possible sources of a COVID-19 vaccine for the target mass inoculation next year.
This will also form part of the work of the vaccine expert panel. They will assess the veracity, first and foremost, of such a report. If true, then it's up for the vaccine expert panel to include this in their final report, and also FDA. Masigurado natin na hindi tayo mabibiktima.
The dialogue between the North Luzon Expressway Corporation and the Valenzuela City LGU will not push through. That's following a statement from the toll operator that they might resort to court intervention. Our correspondent Gerard de la Peña is at the NLEX Mindanao Avenue Toll Plaza for updates. Gerard, what's going to happen now?
Just the fate of the NLEX Corporation's operations here in Valenzuela is still in limbo. One of the officials said that they may resort to filing a temporary restraining order and that didn't sit well with the LGU. NLEX officials and Valenzuela Mayor Rex Gatchalian were supposed to have a meeting on Thursday. The plan for a dialogue came after the Valenzuela LGU suspended the business permit of the NLEX Corporation. Gatchalian said the company failed to improve its implementation of the RFID toll system. Prior to the meeting, an NLEX official reportedly said in an interview with another media outlet that they are in talks with the national government. The official mentioned that they are hoping that the issue will not prompt the filing of a temporary restraining order. The statement, which Gatchalian described as a veiled threat, led to the postponement of the scheduled dialogue. The rejection of the request from the city's audit team to check if motorists are still being charged added to the mayor's disappointment.
Kung mag-uusap rin naman pala kami sa korte, bakit pa tayo magda-dialogue? So the ball is back in their court. They want to bring us to court. Go ahead. We welcome it.
Caloocan City Mayor Oka Malapitan also summoned NLEX officials as heavy traffic persists at the toll gates within his jurisdiction.
In-invite ko ang officials ng NLEX upang sa ganun ay bigyan kami ng paliwanag at bigyan kami ng konkretong ang araw kung kailan nila maayos ang nasabing problema.
In a statement, Quezon City Mayor Joy Belmonte expressed her support for Gatchalian, citing worsening traffic as well. NLEX Corporation has not responded to the latest pronouncements of the local executives. But in an interview with One News The Chiefs, an NLEX official said they are open for the deferment of the implementation of cashless payment until March.
If we will be instructed to do that, we will comply. That will give more room for the operators like us and for the customers to adjust.
The Toll Regulatory Board, meanwhile, distanced itself from the issue and even threatened that non-compliance of operators could warrant penalties.
Ang bagay na yan is a matter between NLEX at ng LGU. Kaya yan ay binibigyan natin ng pansin. Subalit we are giving them their respect to be able to discuss this matter between the two of them.
Just Gatchalian said that the lifting of the suspension of the business permit is still possible even without a dialogue. And that will happen if NLEX Corporation is able to show them that they are able to address the problems related to RFID. Jess.
Thank you. That was Gerard de la Peña from NLEX Mindanao Avenue Toll Plaza with a week left before adjourning sessions. The hearings on the impeachment complaint against Supreme Court Associate Justice Marvic Leonen may have to wait until next year. House Deputy Speaker Rufus Rodriguez assured that Leonen will be given fair and objective hearings. Based on House impeachment rules, Speaker Lord Alan Velasco has 10 session days to have the impeachment complaint included in the Chamber's order of business. After that, it would be referred to the House Justice Committee within 3 session days.
We will afford all the opportunity to our Associate Justice Marvic Leonen to be able to answer the complaint and to be able to adduce evidence on his behalf. We cannot rush this also because we are talking here of the member of the highest magistrate, the highest court of the land.
We'll go for a quick break when the big story returns. As malls feel the pinch of lower revenues due to a ban on minors in their premises, the Trade Department wants to do away with a total ban. And the NBI is looking at the possibility of accidental firing as a probable cause in the death of its counter-terrorism chief. The details later. Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Jess De Los Santos. More and more Filipinos may have been flocking malls as Christmas approaches. But with minors still banned, operators are still reporting a drop in revenues. Now, to help malls, the Trade Department is urging that a bracketed ban instead. Our correspondent, Ria Fernandez, gives us updates from SM Mega Mall in Mandaluyong. Ria, any minors inside?
Just we spotted fewer people here in Mega Mall considering it's a weekday, and by the looks of it, there are no minors in sight. Trade Secretary Ramon Lopez said he understands why minors had to be banned, but if he had it his way, he believes that allowing minors here in malls would actually help mall operators to recoup their losses during the pandemic. From 30%, tenants have started resuming operations in malls at 80% capacity following the easing of COVID-19 restrictions. But it would not be an easy recovery. Metro Manila mayors have unanimously decided to still ban minors from entering malls, a setback for the likes of SM Malls, which has seen a drop in revenues.
We told all our malls not to allow minors anymore to go into our malls. So when we compared week on week, prior to that, medyo around 10% ang drop.
During the hearing of the House Committee on Trade and Industry, some mall operators also made an appeal following reports that not everybody has implemented restrictions.
There are other cities allowing minors in the malls, but others strictly po hindi. So,
Major malls said they will respect the guidelines but hope that it will be implemented across all malls. But Trade Secretary Ramon Lopez, who just tested positive for COVID-19, is pushing back against the move. He said an outright ban of children in malls is not a wise move as kids help increase mall sales by 30 to 50%. If a certain age bracket will be allowed, he believes malls can somehow cushion the blow of the pandemic.
Perhaps we can reopen or consider certain age segment where there is we would say hindi sila yung maging spreader, sila yung may discipline na wearing mask, hindi sila tumatakbo, kumakalat, humahawak sa lahat ng bagay. They are the disciplined children. In other words, yung age na yon, maybe that is 7 years old pataas or 10 years old pataas.
Congressman Sharon Garin does not see the point in banning certain age brackets.
I don't know if there's a difference between a 12-year-old, an 18-year-old, and a 30-year-old going out, because these people are probably more conscious about, if we don't let them go out, they won't know what to do in public, So there's also the education part. So it's just that I don't see the logic na, okay, pwede yung 20, pero hindi pwede yung 18. I mean, what's the difference? There should be some scientific basis to that. Just because they can't vote yet, then they cannot get out. So I just don't understand. Thank you.
Deputy Speaker Wes Gatchalian also questioned if children are allowed to come with their parents in travel bubbles, why not malls? But the health department did not budge.
They are part of that vulnerable sector that we consider also. So aside from the elderly, we also consider children as vulnerable. As to the science on why we are restricting them going out and restricting their mobility, it's because they're part of the vulnerable sector. As we have said, the elderly, the children, also the pregnant women, these are part of those that we consider vulnerable and are at most risk of this disease.
Health Secretary Francisco Duque dropped by SM Mega Mall in Mandaluyong himself to make sure that the establishment is abiding by the prohibition and are practicing minimum health standards. Just Health Secretary Francisco Duque III is satisfied with SM Mega Mall's compliance to safety standards, but the same cannot be said for the Metro's shopping mecca Divisoria. He then urged Manila LGU to work harder in improving the situation in Divisoria as holidays draw near. Jess?
Thank you, Ria Fernandez. Now, the Health Department has been repeatedly warning against physical gatherings for the holidays. But a team of experts is flagging one other super spreader. Greg Gregorio tells us.
The holidays may be fast approaching, but there's no taking breaks from complying with minimum public health standards. Even though there's a downtrend in confirmed cases, Health Secretary Francisco Duque emphasized that the public cannot be complacent, as there are areas outside Metro Manila showing local spikes in infections.
Well, I think the reasons are basically the same. No? The increased mobility of people because of the holiday season, and that is why this is a warning to all of us that if we let our guard down, you're going to really see what we've been saying all along.
Duque encourages online celebrations instead of the usual face-to-face gatherings. But if it cannot be helped, the Interior Department says they will strictly implement the allowed 10 people and small gatherings in GCQ areas like NCR. The DILG urges local governments to issue ordinances or executive orders against mass gatherings such as karaoke sessions. It also wants quarantine violators to be penalized.
The punishment for those who violate the minimum public health standards is dependent on the executive orders or ordinances or resolutions passed by the local government.
But the UP Octa research team is flagging one more risk, the IATF decision allowing business-related gatherings at 30% capacity. The experts said such events may be super spreaders. To address this, the DOH said a detailed guideline will be released, which is being drafted by the Tourism and Trade Departments. Tourism Assistant Secretary Rica Bueno says a joint memorandum circular will be released soon.
It's already currently being reviewed by DTI. Very careful po ang ginawang pagsusuri, no, para yung recommendation natin is really on a gradual basis.
The DOH highlighted that in any gathering, compliance to minimum health protocols is still necessary. For News 5, Greg Gregorio, we are One News.
The government's counterinsurgency task force faces a fresh legal challenge over red tagging offenses. The National Union of People's Lawyers, or NUPL, has filed administrative complaints against the National Task Force to end local communist armed conflict. The group seeks the removal of National Security Advisor Hermogenes Esperon, who is the agency's vice chairman. The same complaint was lodged against Task Force spokesperson General Antonio Parlade and Communications Undersecretary Lorraine Badoy. The three have been accused of violating the Code of Conduct and ethical standards for public officials, as well as grave misconduct and abuse of authority. The three have linked Makabayan lawmakers and, at one point, even some showbiz personalities of ties to communist groups. A member of the Makabayan bloc told 1PH's Sa Totoo Lang that they are likewise preparing to file their own complaint against the officials.
Magiging din yan, Ed, magiging kasama din yan sa ikakaso ng mga ilang mga cause-oriented group. Kasama rin kami doon sa pagkakaso ng ganyan. May kanya-kanya kasing ikakaso depende doon sa mga evidences.
Communist Party of the Philippines founder Joma Sison, meanwhile, slammed President Duterte's decision to block any ceasefire with the Reds until the end of his term. He said Duterte has been taking advantage of the pandemic and public funds to further his intent as a fascist dictator. Now, these are the other big stories today. The Plantation Bay Resort and Spa in Cebu has issued an apology for its harsh response to the online review of a mother whose child has special needs. In her review, the mother complained of discrimination after her son was called out by lifeguards for, quote, squealing with delight at the water. The resort drew flack after a shareholder named Manny Gonzalez accused the mother of lying, claiming that uncontrolled shouting is not a symptom of autism. The tourism department said it will look into the incident. In a statement, Gonzalez apologized for his response to the complaint but noted that he was only trying to apply the policy even-handedly to assure safety and relaxation for all the resort's guests. The NBI is looking at multiple angles in the death of the Bureau's counter-terrorism chief, Raul Manguera, on Tuesday. That includes self-inflicted accidental firing, an accidental firing that may have been caused by another person, intentional shooting, and suicide. The Bureau said 5 NBI employees who were near Manguera's office during the time of his death are also being investigated. And here's some good news for the holidays. Meralco implements another downward adjustment of rates from 8 pesos and 51 centavos to 8 pesos and 47 cents per kilowatt hour. That's a 7 peso decrease in the total bill of customers consuming 200 kilowatt hours. This month's overall rate is also a net rate reduction of 1 pesos and 39 centavos per kilowatt hour, or more than 277 pesos since the start of the year. Now let's go for a quick break. When the big story returns, a beach resort in Batangas has been ordered shut after beachgoers partied unmindful of health protocols. And has Ginebra finally sealed the deal? The highlights of the PBA Finals Game 5 next. Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Jess De Los Santos. This just in. The Senate has ratified a 4.5 trillion peso spending plan for next year. Earlier in the evening, the House ratified the same spending plan. Now, the country's tourism sector is slowly reopening with strict health protocols in place. But these two were breached by some travelers and partygoers. JC Cosico shows us.
This video was taken last December 7. A large group of people was seen partying at the Blue Coral Beach Resort in San Juan, Batangas. It was obvious in the clip. The partygoers did not observe physical distancing, nor the wearing of face masks or face shields. Mass gatherings are still prohibited in Batangas, where general community quarantine is still in place. The San Juan Batangas LGU immediately ordered the resort's closure and the cancellation of its business permit.
At ang may face mask lang ay yung marshal. Tapos po, meron po silang set up for a stage and yung mga chairs. Hindi na po sila pwedeng tumanggap ng any guest.
Appropriate charges will also be filed against the management of the resort. Its operations were earlier suspended from September 2 to 17, also for breaching quarantine protocols. The Tourism Department condemns the reckless incident.
Dapat hindi nila ito pinayagan, lalo na Batangas, naka-GCQ pa. Dahil nasampulan na yung Blue Coral Resort, sana hindi na gumaya yung mga ibang resorts, lalo na GCQ pa ang Batangas.
The LGU says police will continue to patrol the area to avoid similar incidents from happening.
Siguro naman po, ito yung magiging aral na sa lahat ng mga beach resorts dito sa bayan at not even dito lang sa San Juan, kundi sa iba pa ring lugar na hanggat hindi pa inaalaw ang mga bagay-bagay ay hindi dapat gawin.
Over in Boracay, 6 tourists from Luzon presented fake COVID-19 test results to enter the destination island. Aklan Police says the travelers arrived on December 5. Of the 6, only one had an authentic result.
Nakipag-coordinate kami sa testing center dyan sa Manila and then binigay namin sa kanila yung mga documents na hawak namin. And then sila mismo nagsabi, based sa kanilang records, ay yung mga code number ay iba yung mga pangalan.
The suspects are under quarantine in a facility in Aklan and will face criminal charges. Police will also investigate how the tourists were able to secure fake test results. The DOT commended Aklan Police swift action. The DOT earlier announced its partnership with the UP Philippine General Hospital to partly subsidize RT-PCR tests worth 1,800 pesos for Boracay-bound tourists. The island reopened to tourists last October 1 to revive domestic tourism with strict health protocols in place to prevent the spread of COVID-19. For News 5, JC Corsico, we are One News.
Now time for the big stories in sports. A look at the game with Paulo Del Rosario.
Thanks, Jess. Barangay Ginebra are champions once again, winning their 13th PBA title in franchise history. Ginebra defeated the TNT Tropang Giga 82-78. Dapat Aguilar led the way for Ginebra, tying his career high of 32 points, as well as gathering 9 rebounds. In other news, the International Olympics Committee has decided to include breakdancing as one of the events in the 2024 Olympics in Paris. The sport of breaking is a form of competitive dance competition which made its debut in the 2018 Summer Youth Games in Buenos Aires. And those were the latest from the game. Back to you, Jess.
Thank you, Paulo Del Rosario. Now, even animals in captivity can still be susceptible to coronavirus infection. 4 lions at a zoo in Barcelona, Spain tested positive for COVID-19, the second known case of large felines contracting the virus. 3 female lions, Zala, Nima, and Runrun, and 1 male lion, Kiyumbe, were tested after zookeepers noticed that they exhibit COVID-19 symptoms. 2 staff from the Barcelona Zoo also tested positive for the virus back in November. Authorities are now investigating how the lions got infected. Last April, 4 tigers and 3 lions at the Bronx Zoo in New York also acquired COVID-19, but all have since recovered. Now, Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccines are required to be stored in a super cold storage with a temperature of -70 degrees Celsius. This remains to be an obstacle for countries planning to procure their shots. But just how exactly will the pharmaceutical company ship their vaccines? Let's watch this. A man can die but once, and so William Shakespeare, not the playwright of Henry IV, receives Pfizer's newly approved COVID-19 vaccine. The 20th century Shakespeare, 81 years old, had the injection at the University Hospital Coventry, 20 miles from Stratford, the birthplace of his namesake. He was the second recipient after Margaret Keenan, 90 years old. William thinks Pfizer's groundbreaking shot would suffice in the taming of the flu. Some netizens ask if Margaret was patient 1A, then was he patient 2B or not to be? In any case, after months of struggle, so long as the world finally defeats COVID-19, all's well that ends well. And that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250. Please like our Facebook page, One News, for more in-depth analysis. Visit our webpage, onenews.ph. 16 days to go before Christmas, tuloy pa rin ang Pasko, kapatid. I'm Jess De Los Santos. We are One News. Good evening.